ठीक है,
यस सर, सेटअप
शुरुआत यस सर,
देखो
शुरुआत
मैं
से
अगर आपके पास MySQL है, नहीं भी है, तो क्या करना है, वो पहले MySQL डाउनलोड करो, ठीक है। अरे ठीक है, सो ये MySQL वेबसाइट में जाके डाउनलोड दिस वन, ओके। तो ये डाउनलोड करने के बाद एक जिप फाइल डाउनलोड होगा, उसको एक्सट्रैक्ट करके सी ड्राइव में कहीं भी डाल दो। सो
कौन सा सर, पहला वाला करना है डाउनलोड?
हाँ, पहला वाला, ये फाइल डाउनलोड करना है
ओके,
MySQL। ये डाउनलोड करके सी ड्राइव में कहीं भी डाल दो। देखो,
191.4
अनजिप
MB
करो
वाला।
उसको। अनजिप करने के बाद ये MySQL फोल्डर जनरेट होगा,
यस सर,
ठीक है। MySQL फोल्डर जनरेट होगा, इसमें बिन में जाओ, बिन में जाके ये पूरा URL कॉपी करो, कमांड प्रॉम्प्ट में जाओ,
यस सर,
तो वो URL मैं कॉपी कर रहा हूँ इधर, डायरेक्टरी टू दिस पर्टिकुलर URL, ठीक है। वी आर इनटू MySQL नाउ। मेरा MySQL कहाँ स्टोर रखा हूँ मैंने, टॉमकैट वेब एप्स लैब MySQL bin. So you have to be in this bin directory whenever you are running MySQL server, ठीक है।
सर एक मिनट सर, टॉमकैट होना जरूरी नहीं ना?
नहीं नहीं नहीं, डायरेक्ट तुम सी ड्राइव में MySQL फोल्डर डाल दो, चलेगा।
ओके सर, ओके
मेरा
सर,
पहले ही इसी फोल्डर में है, तो मैं इसी URL को फॉलो कर रहा हूँ। तो यू कैन डायरेक्टली कॉपी दैट MySQL जिप फाइल इनटू सी ड्राइव, अनजिप इट, तो एक MySQL फोल्डर होगा, इधर से तुम्हारा लिंक होगा, तो सी ड्राइव MySQL bin, उतना ही होगा तुम्हारा URL, ठीक है। कोई डाउट है अभी तक?
नो सर, नो
नो सर, कोई डाउट।
अकोला भी आ गया, अकोला, ओके।
सर अब स्ट्रीम कर रहे हैं आज?
हाँ, स्ट्रीम हो रहा है, बहुत दिन हो गए स्ट्रीम नहीं किया।
अरे भाई
ठीक है, तो इसके बाद क्या करना, यू हैव टू रन दी MySQL सर्वर। सो उसके लिए कमेंट क्या है, MySQL d स्पेस हाइफन डाल के टाइप कंसोल, ये कमांड याद रखना।
यस सर,
ठीक है, so now you can see server is running. You should get this message, plugin ready for connections. So ऐसा मैसेज आ रहा है तो your MySQL server is running properly. So इसको मिनिमाइज करके रखो और एक कमांड प्रॉम्प्ट ओपन करो, again go to the same directory where your MySQL is present, here copy this URL, okay. So first command what we typed, that is for running the MySQL server, ठीक है। So now what we are doing, we are logging into the MySQL as a root user, right? Obviously you need to log into that MySQL server, then do the database operations, right? So login के लिए क्या command है, MySQL -u root -p, I mean hyphen, okay, MySQL -u root -p. So I have not set any password, so my password is blank. I'll just press enter. Now I have logged into MySQL, you can see this. ये पहला स्टेप करना है, जब भी तुम टैलेंट में डेटाबेस ऑपरेशन कर रहे हो, यू शुड रन द MySQL सर्वर फर्स्ट, देन लॉग इन टू द MySQL एज अ रूट यूजर बाय टाइपिंग दिस कमांड। सो ये दो कमांड याद रख लो, इधर डी नहीं डालना है, जस्ट MySQL स्पेस -u रूट -p। नाउ वी हैव लॉग्ड इनटू MySQL, ठीक है। कोई डाउट है अभी तक?
नो सर।
So just keep following and ask me doubts in between if you have any doubts, so that you'll understand overall process completely. Now, what operations we are doing in Talend? Database operations, right? That is, I'm doing some taking some databases and applying some operations on that and storing the result back into the database, right? So until now we were seeing the output on the console, or we were storing the output in the separate CSV files or text files or Excel files. So now we are not storing the data only in the files, we are also storing the data into the backend, that is MySQL database. So yesterday I told you about, तुम लोग एक काम करो, एक नोटबुक रख लो सामने, स्टेप बाय स्टेप डेटाबेस ऑपरेशंस कैसे करना है लिख लो, क्योंकि व्हेन यू आर राइटिंग द इंटरनल्स यू विल फॉरगेट दिस स्टेप्स. सो पहला स्टेप क्या है? आई विल मेक अ नोट हियर so that you will remember. Okay, tell me what is step 1? Run the MySQL server by using the command. What is the command?
MySQL D console.
So this is first step. Step 2, run the log into the MySQL using command MySQL
MySQL
root minus
minus
p.
u run
Root.
Now step 3. So step 3, we have to do it in the Talend. Metadata creation for MySQL connection. This is the step 3. So first what we need to do, create a metadata in order to connect to the MySQL from the Talend, right? Obviously you are storing the data from the Talend into the MySQL, so obviously you need some interconnection for that. So Talend we need to create a metadata in order to connect to the MySQL. So how to do this process I will tell you. Now go to the metadata section here. Under the metadata section you can see the very first option is DB connections. Okay, the very first option is DB connection. So I've already created here. I will just open it. What is the name I have given? MySQL connection settings. So I'll double click this. So when you create the how to create the connection, right click on that, create connection. So once you do that, you will get this window. You will get this window. What is the name I have given? MySQL connection settings. You can give whatever the name you want to. So for this particular example, I've given it as MySQL connection settings. Now click the next button. Okay, so here you need to do some changes. So what you need to do here is, login name you should give as root. Okay, password I have given as empty because for MySQL I have not set any password. So here also I will not set any password. So if you want to set a password here, obviously even in the MySQL also you should have the password. The same password you should give here also. So remember that point. So for me, I have not created any password, so I will leave it as empty. Then you should give server name as localhost, port number, whatever the port number it is generating, you leave it as it is, don't alter it. Okay, 3306 is the port number. And what is the database I have created? Employee1. Employee1 is the database I have created. So how to create a database? Yesterday I showed you, I think, right? So create database. What, can you tell me any name? CST, something like that.
Vivek.
Okay, so create database CST, right? See, I have created a database called as CST. Suppose if you want to store the output in the separate databases, you should have the databases already created in the MySQL. So in this case, I have already created employee1, so I am giving this one. Suppose I want to store the output in CST now, the new one which I have created. So this one I should be using. So create database CST. Okay, so that name I am updating here because
Yes,
I
sir.
want to store the output in this particular database. So that's all you need to do. After entering all this thing, can you see the option here, test connection?
Yes,
Suppose
sir.
if you are setting everything properly, connections are properly set, means you will get this message, mysql connection settings connection successful. That means it is able to establish the backend connection with the mysql successfully. So you should do this test connection. If you are installed software wrongly or giving the input wrongly, you will get some error message here. So make sure that you press this test connection and verify that connection settings are properly configured. So that is the process you need to do for creating the metadata for Talend and MySQL. So once you do all this process, click the finish button. So it is asking me to propagate the modifications because I have updated the database name here. So I will click X, yes. Okay. So once you do that, you get this metadata name here, MySQL connection settings. So this is this third step. Okay. Now what we need to do. So in our job section, job design section, I was talking about pre-job, right, yesterday. So what is pre-job I told you yesterday? Anyone remembers? What is pre-job?
No idea, sir.
Anyone else? If you remember,
सर लाइक जॉब से पहले कुछ करना होगा क्या?
किसी को भी याद नहीं है? अकुल, विवेक, विवेक तो पूरा कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड रहता है हर बार. कैसे भूल गए तुम?
कल कल सही से नहीं सुना था सर. कल मतलब सुना था बट समझ
हाँ, ठीक है. So whatever component you attach to the T pre-job, those components will be executed first, irrespective of how many components are there in your design page, right? See, there are different components here. There these two components, and this is one entire set of components, and this is the one set of component. So whatever the component you are attaching to the pre-job, that will be always executed first. So you ask me why we need to attach components to the T pre-job. You can ask me. The question is, since we are doing the database operation, right? So before we do any operation, obviously we should establish the database connection, right? Only when I connect with the database, then I can store, retrieve data and do operations, right? So this is why we are using T pre-job. So which component we have attached to the T pre-job? TDB connection. So if you type TDB connection, so you will get that particular component. So you see here, if you type T MySQL connection, you will get this option. So once you double click that, so you will get this updated name as TDB connection. So this is the component I am using. So once you import this component, double click on that. Okay, so you can see component section. Under property type, you should select repository. Are you getting? Go to the properties type section, select repository, and click on these three dots. So you will get this metadata section and DB connection section. So we have already created the metadata for connections. So you should select this MySQL connection settings and click OK. Got it? So once you select that metadata for DBM, MySQL connection settings, you will get all this updated value here. See, did I give these values manually? No, right? Host name it has taken by itself. Database name it has taken care by itself. Then username it has updated. Then port name it has updated. Password again it has updated. So it will take all the values by itself based on the metadata. So the metadata for MySQL connection settings I have selected here. So all the values are updated by itself. So once you do this, but it is null only.
Okay.
So now this component you should attach to the T pre-job. So select this, attach it to the TDP connection. So this is the initial step you need to do. So I will update here. What is the fourth step? Tell me. Import pre-job and TMySQL
Pre-job.
connection components and select metadata for MySQL connection. This is the fourth step. Right. Now let us do some operation. So I have taken two files, emp details 1, emp details 2. So let me show you those files. So emp details, this is the main file. Okay, so I have three columns: ID, name, date of joining in the first file. In the second file, I have ID, state, and city. So here I have ID, student ID, city, and state. Okay, so I am doing a merging operation here using tmap, right? So we are using tmap, right? So I am linking this ID with here, putting the city and state in the output columns and importing ID, name, date of joining in the output column. So you know all these settings which we have done earlier. Click on this output button here, plus symbol, and import all these values into the output, right? So based on ID of the first
Yeah.
database and the second database, we are merging the all the inputs, right, into one file. So this is tmap, you know already. And you should select here inner join and match model. What is the match model? All matches. Okay. After this, what we're doing, we are storing whatever the output generated by the tmap into the database. So our concept is to store the output into the database, right? So what we need to do, import the component. So this is again important step here. So how to import that? Type tmysql output. You will get this component name called as tmysql output. So once you import this, you will get the updated component name as tdb output. So double click on that, right? So observe this step carefully. Interact with me so that I'll be until now. Any doubts you have? Yeah.
नो सर टीम ऐप 1 में क्या ऑपरेशन चल रहा है एक बार फिर से
tmap में we have already done it, right, Sudhanshu? Based on id name हम combine कर रहे हैं रो database 1 का
यस
database
सर
2 का.
मतलब अच्छा यस
इनर
सर
जॉइन
ओके सर
ऑपरेशन कर रहे हैं.
जी सर
ठीक है. तो importing tmysql output connection, that is the next step. So once you double click on this component, you will get this component page. There is a checkbox called as use an existing connection, so don't forget to click this. Okay, so what is the next step after doing operation? Step 5 क्या है? After doing tmap operation, I won't tell you in detail about how to do the tmap operation because you already know it. So I will just mention after doing the tmap operation and click on choose existing connection. Okay, so this is the step 5. My concentration is on how to store the data generated by Talend into the database, right? So I will just mention after doing the tmap operation, import the tdb output, double click on that, select use an existing connection. So once you click on this existing connection, on the right side of it, you have an option called as component list. So select the component list. It is already generated by itself. Existing connection, what is the existing connection I have created here? Can you see here? TDB connection 1, I have already selected this. So it is showing that name. Suppose if I update this name, MySQL CST, will update this name to MySQL CST. Now you double click on this. Can you see this one? It is updated the name. so that you can refer it. This is connection settings. So use an existing connection, you should click component list में जाके you should select this one, TB connection 1 MySQL CST. Okay, any doubts you have?
No, sir.
Okay, so moving on to that. अब क्या करना है? We have already created the database name called as CST, right? Now what we need to do? Store the
Yes, sir.
values under the database CST by creating a new table. We need to create a new table, right? That is the step 5. I mean step 6. So new table. How to create a new table? Again, under this component itself, TDB output component itself, there is a table option. So what is the name I have given for the table? EMP underscore CST1. So this is the table name which I am giving, EMP underscore CST1. And below that you have an option called as action on table. So what operation you want to do on that particular table? So since it is a new table which I am creating, so what is the option I have selected? Create table if does not exist. So I am creating a new table, and what action you want to perform? On the right side you can see the operation which I am performing here is insert operation. Because table only doesn't exist, I am creating a new table and inserting the values, right? Inserting the values. Now schema, obviously you need to select a built-in schema. Just click on the edit schema option and see whether the column names are there or not, because ultimately whenever you are doing Talend operations, schema is compulsory. Schema tells you what columns you need to insert into the database, right? So make sure that column names are generated. So this is the output from tmap and this is for TDB output. So whatever column names are there in the tmap output, the same column names there are in TDB output also. ID, name, date of joining, city, state. So in my table, these are the columns which will be generated. Okay, so just double click on these 3 dots, just see whether it's created, right? So after this, what I'm doing, I'm also generating a separate file, CSV file, using tfile output. That means whatever the output that is given by the TDB output, the same output I am copying into the one more file for my reference into the CSV file. So here EMP details master, I will select the update the name as, you should select field separator as comma include header. So this concept you already know it. So just for your understanding, I am same data I am copying into the one more file. So this is all you need to do under operation. Now the third step, I mean the third component in this particular job design is this one. Can you tell me what is this thing? Any one of you? These 3 components are doing what?
डेटाबेस क्लोज हो रहा है क्या? DB close.
See, whenever you are storing the output into the database, right, until and unless you commit it, you know, right, commit operation in the database. What is commit operation?
कमिट कॉन्सेप्ट तो सुना सर, ये एज
Commit is
ऑपरेशन
nothing
यूज नहीं
but
किया.
whenever you want to store the database, I mean values into the database, you should give the commit operation. Commit means you are giving the permission to store the values into the database. That's all. Commit is nothing but you are giving the permission to store the values into the database. So for that, post job means, you know, right, similarly like pre job, after doing any operations in the job design, so the last stage will be what? Closing the database connection, right? So this commit operation should always be executed at the end, not in between, right? Are you getting my point? Commit operation should be always doing at the end, because you are doing some operation, so you know what output you want to store into the database. Only when you generate output, then you want to commit the operation so that the values get stored in the database. So this particular component TDB commit is attached to the post job. Okay, TDB commit, and again this TDB commit is again attached to the TDB close. Okay, so I will just remove this components and show you components: T post job, TDB commit, TDB close. So this one should be attached to see on component. Okay, connect to this one, then row. So you should not select row here. Just observe TDB connect, how to connect it to the TDB close. Right click on this. There is one more option called as trigger. So you should select trigger, and the component which you need to select is on component OK from this particular list. Select that and attach to this one. So what is the use of this last component TDB close? It will close the connection with the database. Why it is important, boys? Why you need to close the connection after doing any operation?
So because we are done with the job, that's why we are closing.
Yeah,
कोई और
सिर्फ
संस्था
अगर कभी और कोई वर्क करना हो तो डेटाबेस उसके लिए अवेलेबल रहने तो बिजी करके बताएगा ना।
exactly. So if you don't do this, that database will be always open to another other jobs also. This is one of the job, right, which I am using. The job name is job CST database, right? Suppose there is one more job which is using the same database connection. So there is a possibility that it will modify the database which I have created, that is CST. So in order to do that, in order to avoid that particular situation, whatever operations you are doing for the individual database, as soon as you complete the operation, you need to close it so that other people will not be able to access that particular database and modify it, right? So that is why we are using TDB commit, TDB close. Got it? So you need not to do anything here, just import these components, attach them each other. So how to attach the TDB commit to TDB close? You saw. Select right click, go to row, trigger on component OK, and attach it to the TDB close. So this is the overall process. So after creating a new table, what is the last step? Post job component you should select. Then what is the one more component? TDB commit and TDB close. Attach all of them. So on component OK. Go to the trigger option and select on component OK. So this is the overall process for doing your database operation in Talend. Got it? So let me run this program. Okay, boys, see what is happening in the console. You are not seeing anything. It is just showing connecting to the socket on port, connected, disconnected. So it is just doing all the operation backend. So let us verify whether the data is stored into the backend or not. So now what you should do, go back to your MySQL. Okay, so you have created the database CST. So now whether the table is created or not, we should see, right? So what is the table name we have given? EMP underscore CST1.
CST.
So let me see whether the table is created or not. EMP underscore CST1. Show tables. Okay, I should just give show tables. What is the error you are getting? No database selected, right? So obviously,
सर यूज
yeah.
CST नहीं
So
किया
you should
ना।
select that particular database. Now we are logged into the database CST. You select show tables. Can you see the table is created? EMP underscore CST1. Did I create it myself? No. Who created this? Talend component has created this. Now let us see whether the values are stored or not. How to see whether the values are stored or not? Select star from
Select star.
Sir,
EMP underscore CST1.
EMP.
So can you see the output? So it has combined both
Yes,
the
sir.
file. I had
yes, sir.
given the input as two files, right? EMP details 1, EMP details 2. It has combined both the files, ID name, date of joining, as well as ID, city, state. It has combined both of them and it has created the new table. Correct? And I have also generated file, right? Separate CSV file, that is EMP details master 2. So let us see whether it is created there also or not. So you can see it has created the file EMP details master 2. Okay, can you see the same output what is stored in the database? It is also generated the CSV file. So this is the database operations, how to do it in the Talend. Any doubts you have?
NOP, no.
No, sir.
Hmm? So will you be able to do it by yourself?
No, sir.
No, क्यों?
जी सर सर कर लेंगे सर
इतना मुश्किल है क्या?
सर डाउट्स नहीं है सर
अच्छा अच्छा. You understood right how to do this database operation?
जी सर
Hmm.
यस सर
Yes, sir.
So practice these things by yourself, because you can get any test case in your internals. It might be database, it might be tmap, tjoin, file input, file output, any operations you might get. So you do it by yourself. If you get any doubt in your Talend software, inform me personally. We will solve it. Okay, so this is one operation which I did. Now the one more operation which you can do using Talend, I will show you. Right? Yeah. So here again I have imported the metadata for the database connection. Right? So this is the metadata I have just dragged and dropped here. So once you drag and drop this thing, it will ask you which component you want to use for this particular metadata, right? So I have used TDB connection. So if I select that, it will give the same name, MySQL connection settings. You can see here. I'll show you once again. Drag and drop this metadata for the TDB connection which we have created onto the job page. You drag and drop it, and it will ask you which component you want to use for dragging and dropping this particular metadata. So I am using TDB connection. Okay, so I have already used it here. So once you drag and drop the metadata for database connection, I have connected this to trigger on component OK, and I have attached it to the TDB input. So I am using one more component called as tmysql input. Yeah. So this is the component I have used here, mysql input. So you saw in the previous program how to store the values into database. Are you getting? In the previous example, you saw how to store the values into the MySQL database. Now what I am doing is I am importing the values which are already stored in the database and printing it onto the Talend console. Understanding what operation I am doing? I am importing the values which are already stored in the database, right? And I am printing them output into the Talend console. So for that, what is the component I need to use? TDB input. So once you double click on the TDB input, the same thing you need to do, just like how you done for TDB output. Click on the use an existing connection, select this one. Okay, MySQL connection settings. Right, and what is the table name I have given here?
EMP CST1.
EMP. And there is one more thing which you need to do. Right, so you know already connection is generated here. MySQL connection settings is generated. So in this case, what operation I am doing, I want to import the table data, right? So I want to import this table data and print it onto the console of Talend. So उसके लिए हमको क्या चाहिए, schema चाहिए ना. Schema indicates how many rows are there, how many columns are there. So without knowing how many rows, columns are there in the database, I cannot show it onto the output, right? So for that, what you need to do, remember this step. Select this metadata for MySQL connection settings. Okay, right click on that and you should select retrieve schema. Observe carefully. Select MySQL connection settings, right click on that, retrieve schema. So once you select the retrieve schema, you will get one more window like this. So you need not to do anything, just click next button here. Can you see what it is asking?
Yes, sir.
What are these two information which you are seeing here?
So one is database name, I guess. CST
Both
is the
of them are
database name.
database names. See, this one I have created just now. I showed execution and printed the output into the database, right? So these are the database names which are there in the MySQL. So it is asking which particular database you want to refer, right? So let us use the CST which I have showed you just now. So you should select CST, arrow mark, either arrow mark dikh raha hai na, you should click on that, and under CST database, which table you want to refer. What is the table I am referring? EMP underscore CST1. It is already there.
EMP.
So it is showing another EMP underscore CST1 already exists in employee 1. Do you want to cover it? Okay, you just click on OK. So basically it is showing in the two same type of tables are existing in the two different database. So you just select this particular table. Can you see what is that updated here? It is showing you column numbers and creation status. So it is informing you people that there are 5 columns in this particular table and creation status is success. That means the table is there in the database. So after doing this thing, click next button. So once you click the next button, it is showing you the in detail information about the schema. That means what are the columns existing in that particular table, what is the database type, right? And normal type and database type. So this is varchar for name, for date of joining, automatically it is detecting, right? So this is the schema. You need to then click the finish button, then click propagate, right? Now I'll click on this particular TDB input. Then if I see edit schema, you should get this particular window. So that means under TDB input, I have generated the schema by referring the metadata connection and the database CST, under that using the table called as EMP underscore CST1. Okay, so after doing this thing, so here also the name will be updated by itself. You need not to give it manually. So after selecting that particular database and the table, the name will be updated here. Below that thing, you have a query type option, right? So Talend itna acha hai, it can automatically generate the query by itself. So if I click on the guest query,
MySQL.
if I click on the guest query, all this particular information will be automatically generated. Okay, so here what operations I am doing in the query section is, I am selecting the imp underscore CST1 data, where emp underscore cst1 dot state is equal to Karnataka. So this is the syntax you need to remember. See here, you should give hyphen here for the string value, this one, not hyphen, you call it as a apostrophe, right? So you should give apostrophe, and the double quotes from beginning to the end you should give, that is select, from select until the last command which you are writing, so you should end it there, and in between you should give this apostrophes. Okay, so I am just filtering the output which is stored in the database based on the query. So I want to retrieve the information from the database where state is equal to Karnataka. Okay, so now after setting up my TDB input,